Hello, and welcome to this pre-recorded event for Getting Ready to Teach the Next Generation, CiDa and DiDa. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you may want to have the following documents handy, as we will refer to them during the session. This pre-recorded event is designed for deliverers of CiDa and DiDa who want to get an overview of this qualification and to gain support and guidance on the planning, implementation, delivery and assessment of the course. Delegates will gain an overview of the next generation CiDa and DiDa, understand the key features of the redeveloped suite, look at approaches to teaching and learning, review assignment briefs and consider how they can be developed. Review internal and external assessment requirements. Review the quality assurance model and recording documentation. Review support and latest news. The Next Generation Certificate in Digital Applications, CiDa, and Diploma in Digital Applications, DiDa, are now available for Level 1 and Level 2 learners. The CiDa and DiDa qualifications have been refocused around creative computing, combining IT with creative arts-based subjects such as media and design. Many technology companies now demand that employees have both a highly tuned digital skill set and a creative, ideas-driven approach, and the CiDa and DiDa qualifications have been redeveloped with this in mind. For schools in England, Next Generation CiDa is included on the list of qualifications that are recognised in the 5 A* to C headline measures in the 2017 performance tables for Key Stage 4. Next Generation CiDa at Level 2 is taught over 120 guided learning hours and comprises 2 units. 1 externally assessed unit with a practical exam, worth 25% of the total assessment, and 1 internally assessed optional unit, worth 75% of the total assessment. There are 3 optional units to choose from. Next Generation DiDa at Level 2 is taught over 240 guided learning hours and comprises 4 units. 2 externally assessed units with practical exams, worth 25% of the total assessment, and 2 internally assessed optional units, worth 75% of the total assessment. There are 3 optional units to choose from. Mixing creativity with technical understanding, CiDa and DiDa offer something unique for Level 2 learners, and we have developed an assessment model to ensure that candidates are examined on their capability as well as their knowledge. Unit 1 and Unit 5 are assessed through practical computer-based examinations, which are set and marked by Pearson. Each exam lasts 2.5 hours. Assessment opportunities are available twice a year, in January and June. The Unit 1 examination assesses the student's ability to create a website for a specified audience and purpose, using a client brief. To be successful, students must be confident with both how to use the software tools available to them and with the process of developing a web product. Understanding the process of producing a website and command over the chosen web authoring software and other software tools means that students are in a position to meet the specific requirements of the client brief. There are 2 activities in the examination. Activity 1 requires students to design, build, and test the website. Students need to be able to design a consistent page layout, which will include setting a specific page size, producing a suitable banner to a specified height and width, designing a navigation bar with links that meet the client's requirements, for example, incorporating icons into the links or using a specific hexadecimal color for the background or rollover color. Students also need to be able to create interactive components including internal, external, and email hyperlinks, hotspots, rollovers, and navigation bars. Embed multimedia files onto their web pages, including video, audio, and animation files, and be able to control how users view or listen to multimedia assets. Crop, insert, and resize images in proportion. Convert images to different file formats and compress images to a specified maximum file size. Present text clearly using formatting features, such as alignment, bullets, emboldening, headings and subheadings, color, font size, and style. It is also important that students can edit the HTML code directly in order to make simple changes to the code, for example, to change the color of a heading or the positioning of elements on the page. Produce content that demonstrates a sound awareness of both a specified audience and purpose. For example, by editing the given text to enhance its suitability and aligning it with relevant images. Add appropriate accessibility features, such as using a high contrast between text and background and adding meaningful alt text to images. Employ appropriate design and layout concepts when designing and structuring web pages. For example, balance and contrast, visual hierarchy, and the use of white space. Activity 2 requires students to complete an evaluation of their website. Students should evaluate the effectiveness of the final product and justify their design decisions in relation to the intended audience and purpose. Suggest possible improvements to their website and explain how these enhancements would improve the outcome. Students should not describe what they have done in the exam and list the client's requirements that they had not met as future improvements. The Unit 5 examination is Coding for the Web. The examination assesses each student's ability to combine HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create a web page or a website from a wireframe provided in the examination paper. To be successful, students need to be able to write and edit HTML to structure the web page or pages, style the pages through an external CSS style sheet, control the page layout through CSS, write basic JavaScript, for example, to display the date and time or create a pop-up box. Incorporate JavaScript into the HTML code to create interactive content, such as an image slider. Combine HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create style and validate a form. Add APIs, such as a Google Map or Twitter feed. Use HTML5 audio and video elements and attributes to insert video and audio onto a web page. The Level 2 optional units are assessed through a summative project brief, which is set by Pearson, administered and marked by the Centre, and moderated by Pearson. It is essential that students spend 60 out of the 90 guided learning hours for the unit developing the knowledge, skills, and understanding that will be assessed through the synoptic summative report. The Digital Applications Moderators Toolkit specifies the file types that all moderators can view. It is each student's responsibility to ensure that their e-portfolio only includes files in the listed formats. Students should also adhere to the maximum e-portfolio file size recommendations, which are published in the SPB. Students must also comply with copyright in their e-portfolio. They should consider whether they have fully met this requirement. If not, it is not sufficient to simply acknowledge the sources. Students must demonstrate their understanding of copyright issues by identifying each individual asset that is an issue and explaining what they need to do to comply with copyright. The support notes, which are published on the Pearson website to accompany each SPB, provide teachers with essential guidance regarding the administration, delivery, and assessment of the SPBs. Unit 2 is the Creative Multimedia unit. Almost all digital products contain multimedia: text, images, sound, video, and interactive components. This optional unit gives students the skills to use the tools and techniques provided by multimedia authoring software to design and create effective multimedia products. Students will demonstrate their ability to plan, design, build, and test these interactive products through their work in response to a summative project brief. This will include the development of an e-portfolio to showcase their achievements. To be successful, students should produce detailed designs that are carefully presented and demonstrate how the products will function, the assets required, and contain detailed comments about design decisions arising from a consideration of alternative ideas. Provide relevant information about the development process. This should be through an assets table and evidence of selected stages in the development of the assets. This should cover both multimedia assets and images, for example, screen prints illustrating the resizing of video or editing of audio files. Develop original video assets that maintain the interest of the viewer through appropriate planning, filming, and editing techniques. For example, audio levels need to be adjusted to suit the video content and synchronized to suit both content and length. Use motion and shape tweens when developing animated products. Present work in an e-portfolio to showcase the final products and the supporting evidence, and provide detailed commentaries to explain the context for the work. Carry out a comprehensive review of the project, evaluating the products in terms of fitness for audience and purpose, and drawing on the feedback they receive from reviewers. Make specific and valid suggestions for further improvement of the final products, based on ideas arising from the consideration of end-user feedback. Unit 3 is the Artwork and Imaging unit. This unit will provide students with the skills to use artwork and imaging software to design and create effective graphic products. Students will demonstrate their ability through a summative project, which will include exhibiting their work and supporting evidence in an e-portfolio. To be successful, students should select suitable software packages which enable them to produce the level of work required for this unit. Make detailed comments on their design decisions and justify them. Provide evidence of initial designs with comments explaining how they developed into the final products. Develop products that meet the requirements of the SPB and that are suitable for audience and purpose. Produce representations by combining and editing graphic elements to produce the required image. Record the main stages of the development of their products and how both vector and bitmap tools were used. Include appropriate comments to introduce the content of the e-portfolio. Make evaluative comments on their final products and include feedback from reviewers. Unit 4 is the game-making unit. In this unit, students will find out about different types of computer games, investigate what makes a game successful, and learn how to plan, design, and create great games. This unit takes a holistic approach to the assessment of knowledge, understanding, and skills. Students will demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of the unit content through how well they perform in the tasks in the summative project brief. To be successful, students should collect together initial ideas and inspirations for the game and present them graphically through a mood board. Refine the initial proposal or overview in light of feedback to ensure that the idea is suitable for audience and purpose. Produce detailed storyboards and an initial set of rules before building the game, and then provide evidence of how the rules develop and become more sophisticated as the game is built. Provide appropriate evidence of how assets were sourced and edited. Produce a game that is suitable for the target audience and relates to the backstory outlined in the SPB. Produce detailed user instructions on how to play the game. For example, how many lives, who are the enemies, how to win. Record the process of testing and making modifications to the game in response to the glitches, bugs, and issues that become apparent through rigorous and systematic testing. Produce a game with sufficient challenge, for example, through a number of levels that become progressively harder. Create a promo for the game that combines screen captures from the game with well-chosen supplementary content, such as titles, captions, a voiceover, and a soundtrack, to attract interest and encourage people to play the game. Produce a detailed review of the game suitable for publication in an on-screen computer games magazine, which evaluates the strengths and weaknesses of the game and the feedback from others in a game review style. Level 1 CiDa and DiDa are graded at A star, A, B, and C, and are equivalent to 1 GCSE at grade D to G for CiDa and 2 GCSEs at grade D to G for DiDa. CiDa is taught over 120 guided learning hours and comprises 1 mandatory unit and 1 optional unit. DiDa is taught over 240 guided learning hours and comprises 2 mandatory units and 2 optional units. All of the units are assessed through a summative project brief, and there are assessment opportunities for all of the units in January and June. The CiDa Moderation Center Guidance document provides administrative guidance for the internally assessed units at Level 1. Unit 1, Developing Web Products, is a mandatory unit for both the CiDa and DiDa qualifications. Each unit has 5 assessment strands. Strand A. Design a consistent page layout. Students need to produce designs for each of their web pages that show the layout of the assets on each page and a consideration of appropriate design features such as the color scheme, fonts, font size, and the position of interactive features such as links, hotspots, or rollovers. The second aspect of this assessment strand is the consistent application of page layout and design. Students must plan an appropriate page structure and design, which they can then apply to each page in the site to ensure greater consistency in relation to the structure and appearance of each page. Strand B. Select, prepare, and present content. Students must gather assets that are appropriate for audience and purpose. For example, relevant text and images, appealing high-resolution images, complete text, and suitable illustrations and graphics. Furthermore, the assets table should provide specific information about aspects of the development process. Annotated screenshots of key stages in the preparation of assets, such as resizing, cropping, or compressing assets, provide further evidence of attainment for this assessment strand. Strand C. Create web pages using web authoring software. Students need to develop the ability to use web authoring software in order to control the alignment of text and images, to resize images in proportion, to enhance text through appropriate presentation features, and to design a page layout that helps to communicate the purpose of the site. Strand D. Produce a functional website. Students must know how to add audio, video, and animation to web pages, link pages together, and create interactive components such as internal, external, and email hyperlinks, rollovers, and hotspots. Strand E. Review the website. Units 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have a requirement to review the work. Students need to include reflective comments on the strengths and weaknesses of their outcomes, and make suggestions for the further improvements of the final products, based on ideas arising from their consideration of end-user feedback. Unit 2 is the Creative Multimedia Unit. Strand A. Design multimedia products. Students need to produce designs that are carefully presented and demonstrate a coherent link between the proposals, identifying the assets required, and include comments relating design decisions to the requirements of the brief. Strand B. Produce digital assets. The assessment grid for this strand places due emphasis on, and provides high marks for, the production of appropriate assets. Students should include an assets table with information relating to the assets gathered for use in their products, and also information about the assets they produce, not only images, but also video and audio assets. Strand C. Develop multimedia products. Students should design and create products that enable them to demonstrate an appropriate level of skills in the combination of text, images, sound, video, and interactive assets. For example, shooting appropriate video footage and editing it together with an appropriate soundtrack and including the use of motion and shape tweens in animation. Strand D. Present work. Units 2, 3, and 4 all have a requirement to present the work. Students need to create an index with links to the products and supporting evidence. The index page should be well organized with clear links arranged in a logical manner. Strand E. Review the products. Unit 3 is the artwork and imaging unit. Strand A. Design and develop graphic products. In order to access the higher mark bands in this strand, it must be clear how the students arrived at the final design for their products. Students must include designs that give an idea of how the products will function and what the user experience will be, and there must be comments on each of the designs describing what is expected in the final product. Strand B. Create graphic elements. Each product in the SPB is designed to allow students to demonstrate their ability to use graphic tools. Students must show evidence of using drawing and editing tools and provide information on how both drawing and editing tools were used to create each graphical element. Strand C. Produce artwork and images. This strand allows students to evidence the finished products. The artwork and images produced must be such that they not only meet the requirements of the SPB, but also are of a suitable quality and take into account the intended audience and purpose of each. Strand D. Present work. Strand E. Review the products. Unit 4 is the game-making unit. Strand A. Design and development. The requirements for this strand are that candidates produce an overview for their game. This strand is also important because it shows the design and development process of the game. Key design documentation includes storyboards, an assets table, and rules table. Strand B. Game functionality. Students require an appropriate level of game authoring skills prior to starting the project, and the final game must be suitable for the target audience and meet the requirements of the SPB. Prototyping and testing are essential. Students should fully test their game to ensure that it works as intended. The game should have introductory screens, clear user instructions for the keyboard and/or mouse controls, and explicit game objectives. Obtaining feedback throughout the development phase is also vital in order to produce a game that works from beginning to end as intended. It is important that the process of testing and making changes and modifications to the game are well recorded. Strand C. User experience. A game with a number of levels that get progressively harder will challenge the player appropriately. One idea is to start the player off on a practice level to explain the rules and controls of the game and to guide the player through some of the experiences they are likely to encounter throughout the game in order to engage the player in the game. Usability testing should be continuous and appropriately recorded. Strand D. Game review. Strand E. Presenting work. Unit 5 is coding for the web. Strand A. Plan, write and edit HTML. Students are required to produce a wireframe design for the pages. They should be encouraged to read the whole of the brief before starting, so the design includes all the required content. The wireframes should indicate the page size and the size and position of each page element and asset. Students must be able to demonstrate sufficient command over the HTML code in their pages to add internal, external, and email links, create a table of information, and manipulate the page structure to include page elements and assets, such as headers, footers, text, and images. Candidates are expected to record details of how they edit the HTML code in their test log. Students could include screenshots to record the process and outcomes of the editing of the code. Strand B. Write and edit CSS. Students should record the process of writing and editing CSS in their test log, using screenshots where appropriate, to illustrate the changes made and the effect of them. A variety of CSS rules should be used to style text, images, links, tables, and other elements. Students should also be encouraged to use their wireframes to ensure the desired outcome in terms of layout and style. Strand C. Incorporate interactive elements through JavaScript. Candidates are required to use JavaScript to incorporate interactive elements, such as an image slider, into their web pages. The content of the interactive feature, for example, the images in an image gallery, should be well chosen and appropriate to the scenario, and the interactive element should match the style of the page. Strand D. Create page layouts. Students require the coding skills to create pages that clearly resemble the wireframes. There should also be an appropriate balance between the amount of text and images on each page, and links should be clear to see. Strand E. Test and review. The student's test log should be used to record the process of testing and development, which should be ongoing throughout the project. Students should aim to produce a detailed review of the website, commenting on the strengths of the site and making specific suggestions for improvement, incorporating a response to the feedback from the end-of-project reviewer. All of the points raised in this event are elaborated in the examiner reports, but the common issues are: students must spend 60 guided learning hours developing the skills, knowledge, and understanding required to undertake the SPBs. Design work must be given due prominence, as it is essential to the successful completion of the projects. Development work must be recorded, reflected upon, and used to improve the outcomes. Feedback from users should also be used more purposefully to test products and improve outcomes. To be considered fit for purpose, the outcomes should demonstrate creativity, imagination, and an appropriate level of practical and technical skill. Outcomes must not only meet the requirements of the examination paper, or SPB, but also appeal to the intended user. Students must be able to use appropriate software tools with confidence and proficiency. This slide includes details of where further support is available. This is the key web page for customers to be aware of for support and guidance with CiDa and DiDa, and includes the current SPBs and support notes, the Digital Applications Moderators Toolkit, past examination papers and mark schemes, coursework exemplars with commentaries from the principal moderator explaining the allocation of marks, examiner reports, instructions for the conduct of the examination, the examination schedule pro forma, centre assessor sheets, the pro forma for externally assessed units of CiDa and DiDa NG. The grade boundaries for the Level 1 and Level 2 units of the CiDa and DiDa qualifications are available from the Pearson website. Any further questions to be directed to the Subject Advisor for ICT, Tim Brady. We constantly look to improve the delivery of our training and appreciate all delegate feedback. You will soon receive an email directing you to our online feedback form. The form takes no more than a couple of minutes to complete. Please let us know your thoughts by filling in this short form.